It's tempting to dismiss the decline of small businesses in our economy as simply the result of market forces, but that view ignores the political influence of big corporations. Much of federal policy now works to bend the marketplace in their favor, putting both workers and small businesses at a competitive disadvantage. Federal subsidies, grants, tax credits, loan guarantees, and other forms of financial support overwhelmingly favor big, low-wage corporations over responsible small businesses. Tax loopholes likewise tilt the playing field, resulting in small businesses paying an effective federal tax rate that is several points higher on average than that paid by big corporations. Even the U.S. Small Business Administration in some respects caters to the needs of large, low-wage corporations. Between 2003 and 2012, the SBA, under its 7A loan program, backed over 32,000 loans to fast food and other retail franchises like Quiznos and Subway. Many of these outlets pay poverty wages, and the local owners are often themselves victims of the large franchise companies. These aspiring entrepreneurs have very little control over the businesses they ostensibly own. They are required to forfeit such a large share of their revenue to the franchisor. They generate millions of dollars in revenue every year from selling new units. Meanwhile, small independent businesses are starving for credit. In January, we surveyed over 3,000 independent businesses nationally and found that of those looking to grow, 30% reported being unable to secure a loan to do so. The figures were even higher for businesses owned by women and people of color. Nearly half of businesses owned by people of color need a loan and cannot obtain one. As you may know, the SBA is currently reviewing its policy regarding the eligibility of franchises for federal loan guarantees, and we hope members of Congress will urge the agency to make substantial changes. We believe the SBA should cease offering loan guarantees to low-wage franchises and should shift that support to responsible small businesses. This is just one of several ways we believe public spending and support for business needs to be overhauled to create a level playing field for both small businesses and workers. I think two of the biggest federal issues for the independent businesses that I work with, one is internet sales tax fairness, which we've been fighting for 20 years now. And it's just astonishing that independent Main Street businesses across the country continue to have to add 6 to 10% to their prices when their biggest online competitors do not. And that's an issue. There's legislation that has passed the Senate, is waiting on the House. To give you a little bit of a flavor of what this means in terms of jobs, the average Main Street business, for every $10 million in sales done by Main Street retailers, they produce 57 jobs. For every $10 million in sales done by Amazon, 14 jobs. Huge difference. So why is it that we so heavily favor a company that also has, as you know, a very bad track record in terms of how it treats its warehouse employees? The second big issue for our folks is access to capital. This has really become a crisis for small businesses. It has a lot to do with the decline of community banks and banking consolidation generally. And I think one of the things we're really focusing on, as I mentioned, are SBA loan guarantees. Not only are there those loan guarantees being made available to franchise businesses, as I mentioned, but we've also seen this trend where the SBA 10 years ago was making 75,000 small dollar loans, under $150,000 loans. Today they're making about 25,000 a year. So they're still making, their portfolio has grown, it's just that the loans are going to bigger and bigger businesses. And so our folks are really locked out of that. Historically, the SBA has provided disproportionate credit to businesses owned by women and people of color, and so it has a real equity issue as well. My biggest concern about trade agreements, and it's not an area I do a whole lot of research on, but my biggest concern in looking at it is that we could end up with a situation where cities and states in particular who want to pass laws giving support to businesses that do right, that give preferences, for example, in their own purchasing policies for local businesses that pay well, those kinds of things could potentially be overturned through these international tribunals and so on, where a large company could say that that was discriminatory. We think states need to have the power to build the right kind of economy.
Okay. Yvette Clark.
So I just want to get your opinions on how you feel the growing low-wage economy has impacted social and economic mobility of Americans over the past few decades. I think that folks don't really have a good sense of, you know, a period of time where, you know, Americans were able to gain employment, then go from that to buying a home, then using that home as a means of educating their children. Those days seem so far away. Can you give us a sense of what this low-wage economy has meant in terms of social and economic mobility for Americans, in your opinion?
Yeah. You know, historically, there were two great pathways into the middle class. You either got a unionized, good union job at a good wage, or you started a small business. And both of those pathways have been substantially cut off by companies like Walmart, you know, the companies that now dominate our economy. And I think it's really, I'm so grateful for the work that this caucus does, you know, in helping us lead the way towards the kinds of changes we need to get an economy in which we have opportunities, you know, to make a living, to start our own business, to thrive, where there's fairness, where American values are really embodied in policy and really embodied in the kind of economy we're creating. Well, the workers we heard from earlier, I think, really testify to what's changed and the opportunity that exists right now. On the local business side, you know, I think one of the challenges for independent businesses is that they have had very little representation. And people speaking for them, in fact, they've often been misrepresented by big business organizations like the U.S. Chamber, the NRA, who want to, you know, often go around speaking on behalf of small business, but in fact don't really represent many small business owners. We have been working to try to change that. There are now independent business alliances like Metro Independent Business Alliance in Minneapolis-St. Paul that have formed in over 100 cities. A new network came together last year of national small business trade associations, which we help coordinate, the Advocates for Independent Business, which represents 15 national, mostly retail, American Booksellers Association and the like. Those groups are speaking out for a level playing field, and I think there's a real opportunity at this moment for a kind of populist economics. You know, I'll be honest that some of our folks are definitely nervous about rising minimum wage in cities without also some of the inequities and ways in which small businesses are disadvantaged also being addressed. But I think there is a real opportunity there to look at public policy in a way that kind of lifts up the whole economy and does right by both small businesses and workers. And that's, I think, a really encouraging moment.